I'm frustrated. The average advice that you'll typically see someone give when they advise you to pull an avoidant out of limbo will usually go something like this. Just give them space and wait for them to come around. Or be patient. They'll open up when they're ready. Now, I'm willing to admit that there is a grain of truth to this advice. But here's the thing. It's incomplete. And honestly, it's frustrating for anyone who's sitting around waiting for clarity to suddenly make itself available. Giving an avoidant space alone isn't enough. In fact, leaning too far into patience without intentional action can leave you stuck in their limbo while they continue avoiding the very clarity you're seeking. The real secret to pulling an avoidant out of limbo isn't about waiting for them. It's about making a subtle but powerful shift in your approach that changes the entire dynamic. But first things first, let's get on the same page with this whole limbo concept. You want to know the most frustrating part about researching for this entire video? Well, it's that every source I looked at seemed to have a different definition for what limbo is. Look at this. This person says that limbo means they are not ready or not wanting what you have to offer. While this article says that you're in limbo hell if you have the same argument over and over. When you bring up your issues, your partner shuts down. When you've stopped bringing up issues altogether, you view your partner in your relationship in a negative way, and you make comparisons to real or imagined alternative partners. Oh, and Google, which ironically it seems has been taken over by AI results. Well, it says that relationship limbo is a situation where a couple is stuck in a state of uncertainty, unsure about the future of their relationship, often feeling like they are neither fully committed nor completely separated, leaving them in a stagnant and frustrating position without clear direction or next steps. I feel context is important here. So perhaps it's better to show you what being stuck in limbo actually looks like. Check this out. I picked this beauty out of the breakup subreddit. This person says, he dumped me 5 months ago with wishful thinking for the future. Pulled and pulled farther away. Finally, when I begged to see him, he said we can't be friends, something he asked, because all he wants to do is hug me and kiss me, and all that remained was sexual chemistry, but he knows for a fact he doesn't want me and sees no future with us, and thinks it's unfair to be friends because it complicates things when he meets his wife or I meet my husband, aka next partner. This is the type of limbo that you'll typically see avoidants employ. It's sort of similar to breadcrumbing. It's where the avoidant rejects you, but then gives you enough to sort of string you along and make you think you have a chance. All right, are you ready to have your mind blown? Let's shift our paradigm. All right, before I say this next bit, I want to make something super clear. Everything that I'm talking about from this point on is only in relation to avoidance and limbo kind of put together. Got it? Cool. Thus far, we've only been really looking at relationship limbo from the victim's point of view. They don't want what you have to offer. They trap you in this limbo hell. They string you along and sort of breadcrumbing you without committing. All this relates to you, the confusion, the endless waiting, the frustration. But here's the thing no one thinks about. There are actually two sides to the relationship limbo. There's your side, which is undoubtedly awful, and then there's the avoidant side. For the avoidant, putting you in limbo often isn't some nefarious strategy or deliberate manipulation. It's a state of being that reflects their own internal conflict. They're caught between two powerful opposing forces, their desire for connection and their fear of losing independence. This shouldn't be anything new to you. You've heard me talk about this countless times throughout this entire YouTube channel. What's interesting, though, is this internal battle creates a personal limbo for the avoidant, a battle between wanting to move closer and needing to pull away. From the outside, it looks like breadcrumbing, hesitation, or even cruelty. But on the inside, it's often an exhausting cycle of indecision and guilt. They don't feel safe letting you in because it threatens their carefully maintained emotional walls, And they don't feel comfortable letting you go because deep down they value the connection and fear losing it entirely. Now here's where it gets fascinating. Your limbo and their limbo are two different hells, but they're intricately connected. Your limbo, well, you feel powerless, like you're chasing someone who won't commit. You're stuck in a cycle of overanalyzing their behavior, wondering if they care, and questioning your own worth. Where their limbo, well, they feel torn, like they're failing to meet their own needs while simultaneously hurting someone they care about. No, avoidants aren't monsters, they do care. They may even feel guilt or shame for their inability to offer what you need, but they don't know how to bridge the gap without losing themselves. The irony? Both sides feel stuck. Both sides feel pain. But because avoidants struggle to process and express emotions, their version of limbo often comes across as coldness or indifference. It makes it harder for you to empathize. Understanding their side of limbo can change everything. So instead of seeing them as a villain trapping you, you begin to see the human struggle underneath their avoidant behaviors. It doesn't excuse the pain they cause, but it does offer some clarity into why they're causing it. And now we get to the million-dollar question. Assuming you've already pulled yourself out of your limbo, how do you pull an avoidant out of their limbo? Like I said at the very start of this video, giving them space isn't going to be enough. So what is? I pondered over this question for days, researched for hours, banged my head against this glass wall thing here. But it wasn't until I heard this famous parable that things really clicked for me. The parable of the sun and the wind. One day, the sun and the wind were debating who was stronger. They saw a traveler walking below, wrapped in a heavy coat. Now, the wind said, "Let's see who can make him take off his coat. Whoever succeeds is the stronger of the two." The wind went first, blowing as hard as it could. It howled, it roared, it tugged and pulled at the traveler's coat. But the harder the wind blew, the tighter the traveler clung to his coat, determined to hold on to it. Then it was the sun's turn. Instead of force, the sun simply shone down gently, spreading warmth and light. Slowly, the traveler began to loosen his grip on the coat. The warmth was inviting and safe, and eventually kind of hot. So the traveler did what you do when you get too hot. He removed the coat entirely. All right, so what the heck does this mean? Well, the avoidant is like the traveler clinging to their coat. It represents their emotional defenses, their independence, their need to feel safe and in control. If you try to force them out of limbo by pushing and prodding or demanding clarity, they're going to only hold on tighter. But if you shift your approach, you radiate emotional warmth, you create a safe and inviting space without pressure, they'll feel more comfortable letting down their guard. It's not about manipulation. It's about meeting them where they are and showing them that letting go of their defenses won't cost them their sense of self. So, like the sun in this story, your role isn't to force them out of their limbo. It's to create an environment where they feel safe enough to take that step on their own. It's about being consistent, patient, and warm without overextending yourself or losing your own balance. This is literally my secure attachment gravity concept. And it's without a doubt one of my favorite parts of attachment theory as a whole. I feel like we live in this society where everyone wants to kind of divide things into black or white outcomes. And attachment theory is kind of no different. So there are four main attachment styles. You have the secure attachment style, the anxious attachment style, the dismissive avoidant, and the fearful avoidant. Sometimes people call this disorganized. There are literal people out there who thinks that once your attachment style is formed from childhood, you are that attachment style forever. You are unable to change. So if you're anxious, you'll always be anxious. If you're avoidant, you'll always be avoidant. You get the idea. But this is wrong. Attachment styles are fluid, they're dynamic and ever-evolving, especially when they come into contact with one another. It's almost like they're elements in a chemical reaction. When two different attachment styles collide, their interaction can produce entirely new reactions, changing both people in ways they might not expect. Think of it this way. Secure attachment is like water. It's stable, nurturing, and life-sustaining. It has the power to calm and dilute the intensity of other elements. When poured into fire, it extinguishes the flames. When mixed with oil, it doesn't blend immediately, but patiently creates a gentle emulsion over time. The anxious attachment, well, that's kind of like a volatile gas. It's highly reactive and prone to exploding when ignited. When it encounters secure, the gas stabilizes and settles, finding calm in the water's steadiness. But when paired with an avoidant, a flame, it can ignite, creating cycles of tension and combustion. The dismissive avoidant is like fire. It's powerful, independent, and self-sufficient, but also destructive when left unchecked. It resists connection, but when paired with secure water, it can be softened, tamed, and even warmed into a steady glow. When fire meets volatile gas, the anxious, though, it results in chaos, with both parties feeding into a cycle of push and pull. The fearful avoidant is like mercury. It's fluid, unstable, and constantly shifting between forms. It's drawn to connection like metal to a magnet, but its instability makes it hard to trust or rely on. When the fearful avoidant encounters a secure, it starts to solidify, finding safety in the consistent presence of water. But when it meets fire or gas, it can splinter further, becoming even more unpredictable. All right, so why does this matter? Well, these chemical reactions illustrate how attachment styles can change in real time. No one is stuck as a one style forever. A secure person's gravity has the power to stabilize and transform the chaos of other attachment styles. Similarly, two volatile styles can either intensify each other's reactions or burn out entirely. But there is one interesting thing to take note of secure individuals. Secure attachment isn't just another style. It's a gravitational force. It pulls other styles towards balance, creating an environment where transformation is possible. When an avoidant feels the warmth and safety of a secure sun, they begin to loosen their grip on their emotional armor. When an anxious person feels heard and supported by secure stability, they calm down and stop chasing validation. The beauty in attachment styles isn't what they are, it's how they interact. They're not fixed black or white categories. They're ever evolving, always changing depending on who they're talking with or living with or around. And the goal always, when it comes to pulling an avoidant out of limbo, is to act as that secure sun that's always there. And that's why I love the sun analogy. It's constant. It's always there. It's powerful. Things revolve around it, not the other way around. You can't put the sun in limbo. The sun doesn't care. But when people are in relationship limbo, they do the exact opposite of what a sun would do. They chase, they analyze, they search the internet for hacks and tricks and magic bullet solutions. And it's all in an effort to fix the situation. What they're doing is pouring all of their energy into trying to control a situation that is out of their control. And what do all the experts out there recommend? Hey, just give that person more space. And then, of course, the expert, like myself included, because I've certainly been guilty of this, will show all sorts of proof of why space works, of why something like the no contact rule is so effective. But they're leaving out the most important part, the intent with space. There's a very clear difference between someone giving an avoidant space because they think space is a way to win them back, and someone giving an avoidant space because they've reclaimed their own power and genuinely detached from the outcome. The first approach, using space as a tactic, well, it's still rooted in control. It's driven by the hope that if you just play the game right, the avoidant will come back, validate you, and everything will magically fall into place. But here's the thing. Avoidants can sense this. They can feel the subtle pull of expectation, even in silence, and it only reinforces their need to retreat further. The second approach, though, isn't about manipulation. It's about freedom. It's about being detached and not caring what happens. When you give space from a place of true independence, you're signaling to the avoidant that you're no longer trying to control them. You're no longer orbiting in their limbo. Instead, you're standing still in your own gravity, radiating self-assurance and warmth without chasing or demanding. This kind of space is magnetic. It's not about waiting for them to come back. It's about creating the conditions where they might feel safe enough to step forward on their own. And if they don't, well, you're okay with that too, because you're no longer tethered to their choices for your sense of self-worth. It's the difference between space as a tactic and space as self-respect. One keeps you stuck in limbo, and the other, well, get you out of it. All right, I'm going to do something now which I kind of don't like to do, but I feel is important. I've grown incredibly jaded with the breakup industry, and make no mistake about it, it is an industry. There are people out there who just care and look at people like walking dollar signs as opposed to actual human beings. On April 10th, 2024, I posted this video, The Dark Side of Breakups, How Getting an Ex Back Will Ruin Your Life. In it, I make kind of a stunning admission. I don't like helping people get their exes back. I give all sorts of statistics about how getting back together isn't really the hard part, it's staying together, and how most of the people who end up getting back together end up breaking up again within a year. I also talk about how I'm shifting more of my content towards attachment styles as opposed to breakups. I spent over a decade running one of the largest breakup dedicated websites that helps people reunite with their exes. And do you want to know what I learned from all that? Most people fail at reuniting because of intent. Think of it like this. There are two groups of people. Those who get to this place emotionally where they don't care about getting their exes back, and those who only want to get their exes back. Which group ends up having a higher success rate? It's obvious, right? The people who don't want their exes back. But understanding why is the key. The people who don't want their exes back have a higher success rate because they've shifted their energy and focus inward. They've let go of the emotional entanglement that keeps them stuck in a cycle of chasing, hoping, and trying to control an outcome. And this shift changes everything. In my mind, everyone who's out there recommending to reunite with an ex-partner should be literally shouting from the rooftop. In my mind, everyone who's out there recommending that you should get back with an ex should be shouting from the rooftops that your number one priority is to stop trying to get that ex back, because that's actually the most effective thing that works. And that's why space alone isn't enough to get an avoidant out of limbo. It's the intent with that space. The difference is clear. One approach keeps you stuck in their orbit, hoping for a change. The other allows you to become a sun, shining in your own power regardless of what happens with them. Now, just a bit earlier, I mentioned this video where I basically put the entire breakup space on blast. I'm going to actually throw that video up on screen right now, so you can get my unfiltered thoughts on breakups in general and how I think you should be approaching them. Oh, and perhaps the most important part, why most people who are going through breakups are fed the wrong type of information. And the stuff I talk about in that video is probably going to blow your mind.